What's up, guys? We are back with another reaction video. We're going to bring these back starting Mondays and Fridays. So, we are watching a video of Eric Bischoff. He is talking about social media beefs, which is something that I'm on the fence about myself a little bit. I think if there's no payoff, there's no reason to have a social media beef. But if there's some sort of payoff down the road, I think it is a great thing. It's a great use of social media, like especially with Ricochet and Javon Evans. That whole thing that they did, I don't really see a need for that. That doesn't really do anything. There's no payoff that can happen from that. But, say it's Ricochet and Kenny Omega going back and forth. That's just a name I'm throwing out. I don't think it'll be him. But, how about MJF? Ricochet and MJF going back and forth on Twitter. I think that could have a payoff. There's a good reason to do that. Could spark something. I think it's a good idea, especially when you're like an indie talent. I think it would be an even better idea to drum up a little bit of attraction to whatever event you're going to be at. But let's just see what Eric Bischoff says, and I will probably stop it at some point and give my take in between here and there, but we'll see.
Travis Medway is with us here live, and he says, I don't like being negative, but is the story animosity for Cena Cody losing steam? Should it have been more physical like Rock Cody last year, as being out there by themselves with no one in between them hurting the heat? So there's a lot to unpack there, but I just want to say at the top,
to preface, is a little bit older of a video, so they are talking about something that's a little bit behind. This Cena Cody thing has already happened. We are well past that, and my thoughts on that if you've been watching the channel.
Top here, Eric. We've got 5 episodes of television. There's 3 Smackdowns and 2 Raws in between us and WrestleMania. So there's 5 more live shows to advance this. Of course, he's referencing the beatdown in the rain with behind, the building. And
I do also want to bring this up just because it's on topic. I do agree that the build for Cody Cena was leagues worse than the build for Roman Cody. There's a lot of things that were going on for Roman and Cody on the outside of just promo battles, and Cena and Cody were just promo battles. And so I think the build for last year's WrestleMania was much better. This one was kind of a letdown.
In front of all the production trucks with the belt and all that stuff. Yes, that happened on the way to WrestleMania, but we've got 5 weeks to get there. I just don't think we've gotten there yet, Eric. What say you?
No, I'm not feeling it. No, I haven't watched the shows, in their entirety, but I do go back and watch Cody's stuff. Obviously, I'm interested in Cody as a person, and just because I've known him since he was a child. So I am paying attention to that, and I catch the clips, or I'll go back and rewatch stuff. So I'm a little more familiar with that one. And I have to admit, there's just something's missing. I'm not worried about it.
I hate to agree with Bischoff. I hate to be on the same side as Bischoff here. So I didn't realize I would be taking a position with Bischoff. But I mean, I feel like a lot of people were on the same page of this. As the build was bad. It was not a good build.
Given the nature of the talent involved and the writers and the people producing, to your point, we've got 5 weeks.
Yeah.
But at this stage,
they did not live up for that 5 weeks.
Do I feel compelled to stay on top of it? No, I'll catch up when I can.
Agree.
And that's not the feeling you want.
And it's also the sentiment I have about WWE now, which is really sad. I haven't even really been watching live. I've just hadn't really even paid attention. Like, I've got clips and I know what's happening and what's going on, and I've been paying attention to that and making sure I'm up to date. But as far as like the live show goes, I've been doing other things. It's just hasn't been interesting. I don't even know what to say about it, because it's just I love WWE, but the show is. I thought the show was going to be much better. We had a point last year where it was hot and it was the talk of the town and the thing to watch. And now it's just. I don't know if that's TKO and I don't know if that's Triple H. I don't really know what's going on over there. Part of me wants to believe it's TKO, but that's also the part of me that's really against like large media conglomerations and, you know, private equity buying stuff up. So that might bleed into that a little bit, but I'm just not really into it anymore. There's so much wrestling going on right now that
I can't wait till
just
the next
sticking with
episode.
WWE is
You want to see the
doing
next
yourself a
step in that
disservice.
story. Not quite there yet.
We're getting a lot of questions about Booker T. I don't know that you've kept up with this. Have you seen Booker T in the news this past week?
A little bit, yeah. Negative stuff.
So the idea is, I guess, Shane Strickland, who we know as Swerve Strickland, sat down and did an interview with DJ Vlad, who is a big influencer in the hip hop space. And I'm actually very familiar with Vlad TV and count myself as a YouTube subscriber. But I guess there's some heat because once upon a time, Booker T was maybe agreeing to do a DJ Vlad interview and it didn't come to fruition. And when it bubbled back,
if this is what this is about, this is kind of stupid. I remember looking at all this and I'm so glad we're past this, but we're going to keep watching.
Up, Booker said thanks, but no thanks. So I guess Vlad has heat with Booker T over whether or not he'll do an interview. And I guess the whole Vince McMahon bad behavior from years ago and all of that sort of bubbled up to the surface in the interview with Swerve. And I think Booker took it personally. I wanted to get your take on this, if you have an opinion or if you've kept up with any of this at all.
I've just seen the back and forth in social media, and it's kind of it's kind of thing I try to avoid. I'm actually unfollowing certain people that just either because all they do is talk about the dumbest things in the world or their takes are so hot garbage that I feel dumber every time I see one.
That is crazy for Eric Bischoff to say. I have to put this out there. That is insane for Eric Bischoff to be saying, for somebody's takes to be hot garbage. Oh. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm just going to leave it there. Bischoff has been known for some doo-doo takes, so...
Or people that are just looking for the garbage, you know? It just... So I say I'm aware of it. I don't know enough about it. I know Booker. I know what kind of man he is. So whatever the issue is, it's probably with the other guy because I know Booker. He's a solid individual. So other than that, I haven't followed it. It's not my thing.
Let me just say this. I think that there's going to be a lot of people throwing opinions around. I think this is something that Swerve and Booker T should just handle. Like my experience with both of those guys is they get face to face and this will get straight in a hurry. I think sometimes distance creates false animosity and, you know, it's hard to read tone to text and things like that.
I also agree with that. And that's something that the larger part of the world has a problem with is we've become so separated that it's very easy to take something and skew it as a negative when it wasn't meant to be, or, you know, just something that an easy face-to-face conversation would fix, but nobody wants to have that anymore. They just want to be on their side and be right in their own mind. And I'm not saying, you know, one side was right in this argument. I don't even really remember the whole thing, but that does drive a good point that I think if more people would sit face to face that have problems with each other and actually talk instead of just bicker and argue, a lot of problems in the world would be solved, not even just in the wrestling space. But I agree with that.
That's the biggest thing. You hit it right on the head, Conrad. You know, you can say something in especially if you're being quoted in social media.
Yes.
Now you're two people
Oh yeah, also that's a huge thing now too. Misquoting. I feel like I see misquotes constantly.
removed for
People
what you were really
taking just
trying to
like
say.
Yeah.
And
a
that's where
sentence
shit
out of
goes
a
bad. That's why I
paragraph
try
and
not to
talking
read
about
that
it.
stuff, because you're never really getting a very accurate take. And sometimes people just try to be funny, or they try to word things, or in their minds they're saying it one way, but you're reading it, it comes off completely different.
That's right.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
I've had that
100%.
happen to me on both sides of the equation. I fired back to somebody, something I thought was really kind of funny and consistent with my humor, but I didn't realize the person on the other end was in a really, really bad mood and was angry at the world for whatever. Then they see that and they don't see the humor because they can't see my facial expression. They can't hear the tone of my voice. They can't just read me and know that, hey, I'm just kind of having fun with you.
Right.
You don't have that. And it can cause issues, real issues. That's probably what this is.
I say that as somebody who's had a misunderstanding with Booker T before. There was a time where I didn't think I liked him and he didn't think he liked me. We got together in person and man, we figured that out real fast. And it was based on just there's no tone to text. And my experience with both guys, Swerve included, is hey, these are two straight up dudes and they both have mutual respect and admiration for each other. I'm sure they'll get in the room and figure it out. But the issues that they're discussing, yeah, I don't think a couple of white dudes probably need to weigh in on. So
Yeah, from what I remember, yeah, it's something that maybe I have no room to talk on either. But it looks like they're talking mostly about the Swerve and Booker T thing. I'm gonna keep going. See if they talk about anything with like Ricochet and Javon was too recent for this, but Ricochet got into it with somebody else before then, and I can't remember who. So we'll see.
we'll leave that to them. Travis Medway just gifted 5 memberships here at 83weeks.com. Want to give you some love.
Yo,
Thank you.
Trav, we love you, brother.
And appreciate you, Darren Staley, gifting a membership as well. Gareth Jones, he's got a couple of questions about Goldberg in Atlanta. He says, one final question following on, what was it like to be backstage for the Hogan Goldberg match in Atlanta? How was the backstage atmosphere, reactions, feelings, and how was it put together with Goldberg and Hogan in Atlanta? Did it feel like a pay-per-view that night in July of 1998?
It actually felt
Okay,
good.
I think they're just gonna talk about Hogan and Goldberg after that. I probably should have watched this video ahead of time, but I didn't. I thought this would be a really really good topic. Yeah, I guess I was thinking it was gonna be something different. But I guess I'll make my point on the social media beefs. I think that social media beefs are a good thing, especially within company, right? Like WWE versus WWE social media beef is great. Like if you look at Chelsea Green's Twitter page, Instagram page, whatever, her and Meechin and BFAB go at it all the time, and it's always entertaining. It's never anything extremely negative. You know, they're obviously playing each other, but there is a little bit of animosity that is building up, especially with Zelina Vega. Almost forgot to throw her in there, but I think it's fun. I think it's good. I think the fans enjoy that, and I think it's well worth it. I don't think it's worth fighting, across the pond, so to say, like WWE versus AEW. I don't think that's worth anything and not worth the time of the wrestlers because there's no ultimate payoff. There can be no payoff. If there was an option where once a year everybody got together and had like a massive, massive wrestling event, I would understand and I could see the payoff there. And you could be building this for months ahead of time. But, if you're going after a guy in a different company, that's just, that's just not cool. We want to be respectful of wrestlers and, their hard work that they put in for our entertainment. They don't have to do this. They could have picked a much safer profession, and here they are putting their bodies on the line, i.e., Zoe Stark, for our entertainment. And so I think the social media beefs are worth the time if done correctly and done within company. And like you get out into the indies, you can have social media beefs with the indies and it'd be great because there's always a chance of a promoter picking that up and booking the match. And that could be huge for an indie promotion if the social media beef has drummed up enough attention and you have the ability to book these two for a match. I don't see why not. I think that's a great idea, great way to maybe get your name out as long as you're still respectful and do it, well. I think it's a good tool to have in your bag, especially in this era of social media.